Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soul Talks with Alka. Adoption is very taxing on any relationship and for any parent. Today, we're going to talk about adoption with a very special woman. I'm going to welcome to my show Andrea Yaromili. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you.
We go back a long way, Andrea.
We do. We do.
Yes.
Before kids.
Before kids.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Before human kids.
Before human kids, actually. That's true. That's true. And we'll talk about the furry kids also.
We will.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Andrea, tell us, when did your parenting journey start? How long have you and Shaker been married?
Shaker and I are going to be married for 25 years this summer.
Wow.
So yeah, long time. And we became parents when we were married for 11 years.
Okay.
After we've been married for 11 years.
So you tried
we basically about a year and a half after we were married, I ended up having a borderline malignant tumor, and I had surgery and a lot of things, and that kind of led to infertility. And so right away we had always thought that we would have 2 biological kids, and then we would adopt another one.
Oh,
just for the fact that there were children that needed homes.
Yeah.
And when we figured that my medical problems were going to cause an issue with us being biological parents, we jumped straight into adoption. We didn't even think twice. It was like natural.
Yeah. Because you already spoken about it. It was something you already...
Right.
You were used to the subject.
Right. We had talked about it, and it was not something that we both felt really open to.
Right.
That whole process. So we figured, it's, let's just adopt. It's okay. It doesn't matter. So yeah, we started right away. We went and met with a couple of agencies, and you realized that adoption for non-US citizens is not so easy. Yeah, we were not even green card holders at that time. So it was not something that anybody wanted to consider for us.
Right.
Like, we were young, and we were not citizens, and we went and we met with an agency, and they said, well, we're really...
And you're from India. Both of you are from India.
We're both from India, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes, and we were just on our visas.
Right.
And so they said that, it wasn't going to happen, and they offered us a suggestion to adopt from India instead, because it would have been easier. It's never easier.
Yeah.
But we also had the challenge with adopting from India is that because we were not citizens, you can't just, do the process and then come back with the baby.
Right.
You had to be in India with the baby for 2 years.
Right.
At least one of us would have to be in India with the baby for 2 years. And we wanted to start a family together.
Right.
Not have,
Yeah, what's the point?
What's the point?
Right.
So we decided that was not the path.
Right.
And so we thought about it, and we talked to another agency, and it didn't work out. And then we thought we'd go to the New Jersey Foster to Adopt program. And we said, okay, let's do that instead. And that hit a road, a brick wall. It was a roadblock, didn't happen. And then years went by pretty much. And, people from India tend to tell you, it's okay, it'll happen.
When it's meant to happen.
When it's meant to happen, it'll happen. You could, you don't need a kid. You have my kid. My kid's like your kid. all the.
You have your nieces and nephews.
Yes, pretty much. Like, you're just obsessing over this parenting thing. It's not really that great, or it is great, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's overrated.
Right. So it was tough. It was really, really, really tough. And in a way, I think I was more invested in becoming a mom than Shaker was at that point in time too. So it was hard, you know.
Because you wanted it more than he did.
Yes. And the thing is also, from a woman's point of view, it was my fault. though it's like Sheikh would get really upset with me for saying it, but it was because of me that we were not able to have biological children.
Mind.
Yes.
Right? It's not something that
it's not. He would never say. Oh, he would never say that.
Never. That's not him.
No.
But in your mind, you're thinking, I can't be a mom, and we can't have a family.
Right.
Because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was difficult.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, all your friends are having babies left, right, and center.
Yes.
And you're their favorite aunt.
Yes.
And when they come, they don't want to let you go.
Yes.
And then they leave.
That's right.
And then your house is like quiet.
And you're left with the void.
And it was difficult.
Yeah.
A friend of ours, a very, very close friend of ours, adopted from an agency in Texas. And she said, you got to go. And I said, we've been to agencies and they don't want to work with us. And we had still
What were the challenges you were having with agencies because you were not citizens?
So one of the agencies that we had gone to specifically told us that because we were not citizens, we would always be at the bottom of the list.
Okay.
We would always be, say we went in today, and so we were at the bottom of the list, obviously, because we just went. Right. But tomorrow, if a citizen couple came in, they would be above us. So we would always continue to be at the bottom of the list. However, if we wanted to adopt a baby with special needs, or a baby that had like some kind of an addiction, or an African American teenager specifically.
Okay. So like a tier 2 baby.
Right.
Like
a baby that
not in demand,
right,
so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they could work with us right away. So at that point in time, when that exact conversation happened, I was 27 years old. I was definitely not ready to be a mom to a teenager.
You were young yourself.
And I didn't feel like we could establish a parent-child relationship. I could be a friend,
right,
but I could not be a parent.
Right.
And I wanted to be a parent.
Right.
And adopting a child with special needs you to have a nice support system.
Right.
And because we were from India and our families are all in India and not here, that was not something that was viable for us. Like it would have been more than we could have handled.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the support system.
Was that disappointing when she told you?
It was disappointing. It was really disappointing. It was heartbreaking. It was...
because you've never seen yourself as quote-unquote second-class citizen, right? You're not thinking that, why can't I have...
It didn't strike me about the second-class citizen, but it did make me feel that here's another thing I can't do. I kind of put it on me again.
Because you were internalizing it.
I was. I am that kind of a person. I try to want to be in control of everything, and I can't be in control of this situation, obviously. It's just not going to happen. And it was really hard. Really, really hard, and kind of just made me feel like, yeah, this is just rotten. And it's the same thing when and we did after we finished with the foster to adopt thing, and it was hilarious because I had been through my surgeries and I was completely healthy at that point in time. But when we were going to finish the last step of the foster to adopt, there was a lady, and I do not remember her name, but she came over to our house to do the final, home study walkthrough, talking to us kind of a thing. And she said to me she would like to get a letter from my doctor stating that I wouldn't be sick anymore and I would be completely healthy and I would be okay to raise a child. And I really didn't think that any doctor on the face of the earth was going to give me a letter like that.
Nobody can give anyone a letter like that.
Yeah.
That you're going to be healthy forever.
Right. She wanted a letter, and that wasn't going to happen. And we looked at her really like, are you kidding me? kind of thing.
Serious?
And she said, then we can't work with you. And she left.
Wow. So now again, are you thinking... because of me?
It was because of me. She needed a letter from my doctor.
But Andrea, it's not you. Nobody can give a letter to anybody.
Right. But at that point in time...
it was another nail in the coffin.
It was another nail in my coffin.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was just horrific. And I didn't, I went through a lot of depression at that point in time.
I can imagine.
And it was really, really difficult. But anyway, so we decided at another point in time, maybe a few years later, because it's really hard. You want to heal from one process before you jump into the next process.
It takes time.
So we went back. There was this doctor in New Brunswick who was a really, really good IVF doctor, and we figured, you know what? We've not tried that. We've just said naturally it's not going to happen.
Right.
But you never know if we can do the IVF, and so we did. And we didn't do the IVF. We went through the process to get to doing the IVF, and it was just crazy because we had the last appointment again. It just, everything happens like it takes us to the brink of it, and then the ground opened up again. Because
so it gets you all excited. There's hopeful.
It is.
And then all of a sudden.
It is. And so we had this doctor come in. Shaker and I both had gone into to see the doctor for the day before we were going to start. We bought like the medicines and we'd done all of that stuff. And Shaker left because he had a meeting. And I was waiting for him. He had to do an exam, and then I was waiting for him to come in again. And he said, you know what, you have too much scarring, and in good conscience, we cannot do this. We cannot do the IVF. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. And he walked out of the room.
Wow.
And I sat there.
Stunned.
Oh, it was just, I don't even remember how I drove home that day. It was the hardest day ever.
Wow.
And so we recovered from that.
But for someone who's already internalizing everything, right?
Right.
That is another thing you're internalizing and saying, again, because of me.
Yeah, because of my scarring.
Because of my scarring, I am not being able to.
So, right.
To have a baby.
Right. So it was yet another craziness. And in the meanwhile, like I was telling you, this friend of mine had adopted a baby, and she kept saying to me, you should go to this agency in Texas. They're really good. And I kept saying to her, you know what? We've tried. We've been down that road. It's just too hard. I can't do it again. I can't even talk to somebody. She's like, why can't you just talk to them? And I said, I can't. I cannot hear somebody else tell me no. Yeah. Like I've reached that point where I can't.
Yeah, it's too much.
And so life went on. Another few years went on. And by this time, I think, Shaker was ready. And I had started working. I was really enjoying my work. And he said, what if we called the agency? And I said,
I mean, now you have furry kids.
I had furry kids right from even before, because we got our first dog almost right after my first surgery.
Oh, okay.
Almost.
So furry kids have now made you happy, completed your home.
Yeah, and I treated them like they were my babies, and yeah, I did everything. Yeah, everything for them.
Yeah. Your babies were spoiled. Rotten.
Right. They were.
Yes.
And Shaker and everybody who knew me and knew the dogs would agree.
Yes.
But it was amazing because I'm a person of faith in general, and we went to church one Sunday, and there was this family that was right in front of us, in the pew right in front of us, and they had an obviously adopted child. And we went back. Now Shaker is Hindu and I'm Catholic.
Right.
But we still go to church.
Right.
Occasionally, he's not very, specific where he goes to pray. So, we would go to church.
I mean, you celebrate Hindu holidays.
We do.
You celebrate
We do.
You celebrate
We do everything. Yeah.
Okay.
We celebrate Jewish holidays too, because we used to have a Jewish neighbor across the street from us who we loved dearly and who became family, and so we celebrate Jewish holidays too. But that's a different story. So, the second Sunday, back to back, we went to church, and there was this family that had an adopted child, because it was definitely a couple, a Caucasian couple, and an Asian little girl. And we looked at each other and we said, wow, And then the following Sunday, we go back to church, and there is a third family, completely different family, sitting in front of us with obviously adoptive children. And Shaker and I walked out of church that day and said, this is just too much of a coincidence. This is a sign.
Yes.
And so right from the parking lot, I called up my friend and I said, I need the name of that agency.
Wow.
And she gave it to me very happily. And the next morning I called them and they said, of course, we work with you. And like literally my jaw hit the floor, because I was so used to
hearing no.
And I said, well, I'm not a citizen. I'm not even a green card holder. And they said, yeah, that's okay. We work with people from around the world and you're fine. But, you'll have to fill out paperwork. You'll have to do all this. So literally the next day, they overnighted this big stack of papers for us to fill out, which we filled. And that was May.
Okay.
And we filled out the paperwork. We contacted an agency to come and do a home study. And they came. No, they didn't come. They wanted to schedule it. And we said, yeah, we'll schedule it. But I wanted my house to feel perfect, because I've never had a child, but I want to make sure that when they come in, it looks child friendly and all of that stuff.
And you have this glimpse of hope, and you want this to go through.
Right. So, of course, we had to get all our eggs. So I hadn't scheduled it. And then in November, we got a call from the agency saying, hey guys, I know you haven't, finished all your stuff, but there's this potential baby. And we're like, oh my God, this can actually work.
This is going to happen.
So that pretty much lit a fire under us, and we got, that one didn't work out, but we got lit this fire under us that we got to get it done, and we submitted all our stuff. The guys had come and gotten our home study done and all of that. Got our fingerprinting done, got all that, all the stuff that we needed to do finished by the Christmas break. So between Christmas and New Year's, we send everything to the agency. And January 7th, they called us.
Like 7 days?
7 days, literally.
Wow.
They called us and said, we have a potential match. And it's a boy. And it's so hilarious, because I used to go into these baby stores and look at girl dresses. And so I said, oh. And I said, no, a boy's good, a boy's good. And then I tried to call Shaker. He was in a conference. I couldn't speak to him. I was going crazy. So I went, I was at work. I pull out this friend of mine. I said, I have to tell you something. And she said, what? And so I pulled her out into the stairwell. Oh, we stood there and I told her. And we stood there jumping and crying and hugging each other. And yeah. And
it was going to be real.
And yeah, so, but still, we went through an open adoption. Texas has a great rule for adoptive parents. Mm-hmm. Like New Jersey, the birth parents have the opportunity to change their mind. I think at least at that time when we were adopting, for 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So it's really hard. But in
Texas, pins and needles,
right? Because they can decide anytime during the 6 months that they don't want to do this, and they can come back and they have full legal rights to take the baby away. Right. But in Texas and I think in Florida, the two of the states that I knew of, that the birth mother has to make her decision in 48 hours.
Okay.
So it's a lot less of a
Pain period.
That, you're uncertain of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we we got a chance to speak to her over the phone. And then, I spoke to her a couple of times till April. And Shane was born in April.
Oh.
And we went to Texas. And we got our baby boy. He's gorgeous.
He is gorgeous, actually.
He is in and out. And so I'm glad he wasn't a girl. He was the boy.
But you kept in touch with the birth mother, right?
I still do. Yeah, I still keep in touch with her. The first few years was a lot more. But we were also in touch with her through the adoption agency.
Okay.
Now, our agency is closed now, so I keep in touch with her one-on-one.
Wow.
So,
and does Shane know about her?
Shane does. Shane has, we've never hid it from him.
Okay.
We didn't think that it was the right thing to do because it's part of who he is.
Yeah.
And two, from whatever I've heard, it's really hard for a grown person to find this out suddenly. So we didn't want it to come ever as a shock because people knew around us, obviously.
Right.
So we didn't ever want him to be unaware of something that everybody else knew.
Right, exactly. You don't want him to find out from someone else.
Right. But then, which was wonderful because 4 years later, we went back to adopt our little girl and he came with us.
Oh, he came with you?
So he was part of that. And it was just, I don't think he looks at her.
Was he ready for the baby?
He wanted the baby. It's because of him that we ended up going for the second one. Shaker wanted a second child, but I was perfectly content with my 2 furry babies and my Shane.
Yes.
And Marissa knows that. She knows that Shane was the reason why for Christmas, he wanted a baby brother.
Oh. Marissa's not a baby brother.
No. No, she's not. She's more than a baby brother, though. She can drive him crazy. So anyway, he wanted this baby from Santa, and Santa didn't deliver. So he was miserable Christmas morning. This child that has pretty much every gift under the tree that has his name on it.
Yeah.
Santa didn't bring him
what he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Shaker said, we got to do this. We got to do this again. And Shaker had said that when we were bringing Shane home from Texas, on the flight, he said, we got to do this again. And I said, you're mad. And he said, we're going to do this again. We're going to do it again. And I said, no, we're not going to do this again. And he said, yes, we are. And so the first week of January, we called the same agency. They were still in business at that time. And we said, we want to do this again. And they said, okay, you know the drill. We'll send you paperwork. You fill it out and, make your booklet and whatever else. And this time we didn't procrastinate. And this time we knew what to do.
Exactly. And this time it was not so... It wasn't such a roller coaster ride for you because you knew what to expect.
Right. And we knew we had these people in place. We called the same people to do our home study again. We didn't have to do, there were so many things that were, this process was smoother.
Yeah.
In May, somewhere around May is when we found out about Marissa. And she was born in September. So literally 9 months from January to September, she was pretty much Shane's wish list, Shane's wish come true, is how I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And when you held the babies in your arms, right, after so long, how does that...
So we were in the room when Shane was born.
Okay.
So we were in the room and the birth mother held him and then she gave him to me. And the whole time he had his eyes closed. And then I passed him over to Shaker. And Shaker said, hi. And we knew we were going to call him Shane. So Shaker said, hi, Shane. And he opened one eye like that. And he looked around. And it was the funniest thing. Because all this while, when his birth mother held him, and then when I held him, he was just calm and just, cute as a button. And suddenly there was life. What is that sound? It was the cutest thing. And so we used to call him Pirate for a long time because he did that quite a lot after that too. He was like, I don't need to open both eyes. I could just open any one and see what's going on. So holding him in my arms for the first time, holding Marissa, I was the first person to hold her. We were not in the room. when Marissa was born. But her birth mother said to me, she's your baby. You need to hold her first. So she hadn't held her after Marissa was born.
Wow.
And so when we right after she was born, they were cleaning her up and we were let inside. And she said, I haven't held her, but she's yours. You need to hold her first. And so I held Marissa first. And then...
I can imagine you just bawling.
Oh my God. It is just... You don't ever dream in your life that you could be so lucky.
Yeah.
I should say, I never dreamt in my life that I could be so lucky, because I really lucked out. And these were my babies, you know. These were my babies. They just had to find a different way to come to me.
That's right.
And they did. And I have them. And it's been 14 years since we adopted, 13, almost 14 years since we adopted Shane.
Wow. And after your adoptive kids, right? You've done something amazing for your furry baby. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. Our Ralphie, and I'll say our Ralphie because
he was your Ralphie too.
I really loved him. He was cute.
He was everybody's Ralphie.
He's everybody's Ralphie.
He was everybody's Ralphie, and he was like, I had the two dogs, and you've met both of them. Skipper,
yes,
who was a queen,
yes,
and Ralphie, who was just the lover,
yes,
and I loved them both, but Ralphie inspired me to make up these stories because he was always up to something.
yes.
And so I always wanted to share.
He was a naughty boy.
Right, he was. He was a very naughty boy. He was the most lovable boy too.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a book about him. It's called Ralphie Always Loved. And it's won a couple of awards, which I'm very proud of. And he's no more, of course, he's gone. In fact, even though I started writing this book a few years before he actually passed, because I knew he wasn't going to be around anymore. And he lived till 16, which was old for a dog. But I wanted to share him with everyone. And he was just automatically loved by everyone. Yeah. And so it was very natural for me to call this book Ralphie Always Loved, because he was loved when he was around. He is still loved by people around the world actually now, because
I see his Instagram page. What is that called?
It's called Ralphie Always Loved. Yeah, his Instagram is called Ralphie Always Loved. In fact, on Instagram, he's known as the dog father.
Oh, so cute.
So he's pretty popular, that boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, even across the Rainbow Bridge, he's pretty popular.
So Andrea's had a life from thinking, am I ever going to be a mom, to being a mom of 2 kids.
Yeah.
To have written an ode to Ralphie.
Yeah.
Right? What is your advice to women who are struggling for motherhood? Who are saying, you know what, I want to be a mom. What is some words of advice for them?
This is what I would say. You know, in life, everyone says, keep an open mind. Things will happen. You know, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. And frankly speaking, as a human being, you worry and you stress. And things happen when they're going to happen, how they're going to happen. And if you keep an open heart, that's all you need. You know, your mind will tell you lots of things. I'm not worth it. It's not, you know, I can't do this. It's so hard. It's just too much to handle. Because when you're going through stuff like that, it's just too much. You can't deal with it. But you just keep believing and you keep that open heart and the opportunities. Because if you had told me that I was going to be, when I was growing up, I was going to be in America first and adopted 2 babies that are not Indian, who frankly don't look like they could be not our children. And they're not, obviously, because we didn't have any hand in their perfection. But we kept that open heart, Shaker and I. We believed that it would happen, and it did. So I think that if it's something that you really want, if you really want to have that baby, and if you really want to be a mom, don't give up. That's what I would say. Just keep at it, you know. It'll happen. It'll happen when it's the right time. And it took 11 years for us. It wasn't the right time before that. They weren't ready to be born before
That's
that.
right.
They were ready to be born at that point in time, and we were ready to be there to welcome them into our lives. And they're welcome. You know, our families have embraced
Yes.
them. Our friends have embraced them, and I don't think that it was. No, this was how it was meant to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I would just say, don't give up,
Don't give up. Yeah.
and have an open heart. That's my thing. The
Yes.
heart, the love.
Heart is
That's important.
Yes. And if Andrea's story touched a chord with you, or if you think someone needs to hear Andrea's story, please share it. Please call me if you need Andrea's help in anything. I know where to find her. I will reach out to her and we'll get you the help that you need. But please don't give up if you want to be a mom. And with that, I want to thank you for watching another episode of Soul Talks with Alka. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea, for joining me.
Thanks, Alka, for having me.
Thank you.